You've been lied to. You've been told that women are pure, nurturing, selfless creatures whose love is unconditional. You've been taught to sacrifice, to chase, to please, in hopes of winning their affection. But what if I told you that every tear, every laugh, every soft touch may not be what it seems? This video is going to expose the deeper truth you were never meant to hear. It will show you why your confusion, heartbreak, and frustration aren't your fault, but the product of a system designed to blind you. By the end, you'll never look at the dynamics between men and women the same way again. From the earliest stories men told, women have been exalted as paragons of purity, compassion, and divine emotional depth. They were worshipped not only as companions but as muses, queens, and saints. Civilization placed them on pedestals, draping them in virtue they were never asked to prove. Men, driven by desire and idealism, gave women a role they never claimed for themselves. The role of moral superior, emotional savior, and selfless nurturer. This illusion has endured for centuries. Poets call it love, priests call it sacred, and the modern world calls it empowerment. But strip away the layers of cultural narrative and peer into the naked mechanics of nature. You will not find a goddess. You will find a creature, like every other, designed to survive, to reproduce, and to secure the most favorable outcome for herself and her offspring. Everything beyond that is an overlay, fantasy, sentiment, projection. The man idealizes because he wants to believe. He wants the woman to be more than flesh and instinct. He assigns her meaning. She becomes not just a partner, but a symbol of salvation. She is beauty incarnate, softness in a hard world, the reward for his struggle. But what he mistakes for virtue is often nothing more than strategy disguised in sentiment. The smile he cherishes is not a portal to her soul, it may be a calculation. The affection he reads as deep connection may simply be her way of securing comfort, security, or attention. What makes this illusion so dangerous is not that women consciously deceive, but that men unconsciously volunteer to be deceived. They see what they want to see, and in doing so, lose sight of what truly exists. They do not observe, they imagine. They do not discern, they believe. And this belief is costly. It blinds a man to the transactional nature of most human relationships. It blinds him to the fact that affection can be given out of self-interest, not love, and loyalty can be withdrawn the moment the benefit ceases. The modern world has refined the illusion. Where ancient societies revered women for fertility and mystique, today's culture clothes them in empowerment, moral clarity, and emotional wisdom. She is never wrong, merely misunderstood. She is never selfish, only healing. Her betrayal is painted as growth, her manipulation as trauma response. The man who dares to question this narrative is labeled bitter, broken, or misogynistic. The illusion is defended not because it is true, but because it is comforting. To destroy it would be to admit that much of what we call love is built on fantasy, not reality. Nature does not concern itself with idealism. Nature is indifferent. It operates through instincts, and women are not exempt. Their beauty, charm, and emotional expressiveness serve a biological function. These are not gifts for men to cherish, but tools for ensuring survival. Her softness makes her approachable. Her tenderness makes her desirable. Beneath it lies a will to secure the strongest mate, the most advantageous conditions, the best possible future for her and her offspring. This does not make her evil, it makes her natural. But when a man mistakes nature for morality, he is destined to suffer. To see a woman as she is, not as she is imagined, is not cruelty, it is clarity. To remove the rose-colored lens is not to descend into cynicism, but to rise into wisdom. One must understand that she is not the saint you seek, nor the devil you fear, but simply a human being operating within a framework of incentives, limitations, and instincts. Idealism turns her into a myth, truth returns her to reality. The illusion of female idealism is not maintained by women alone. It is enforced by men who fear the loneliness of truth. It is easier to believe in the fantasy than to face the abyss of independence. Easier to chase a dream than to stand alone. But in doing so, man sacrifices his discernment. He abandons his power. He becomes the believer in a temple that was never sacred. Even when confronted with evidence, men often retreat back into the ideal. They forgive betrayal because it doesn't fit the narrative. They excuse manipulation because the illusion must remain intact. They endure humiliation in the hope that the dream will become reality. But dreams are not contracts, and fantasies do not love you back. The man who wishes to see clearly must first be willing to lose the comfort of the myth. He must look past the perfume, the softness, the smiles, and see the pattern, the instinct, the game. He must realize that the very qualities he adores are often the same ones that ensnare him. What men commonly refer to as love is not the ethereal bond of two souls, nor the meeting of destinies under the stars. It is, more accurately, a cleverly disguised trick of nature, a biological compulsion masked in poetry and idealism, designed not to elevate man, but to use him. The overwhelming yearning that seizes his mind, the sleepless nights he spends thinking of her, the willingness to abandon logic in the pursuit of her attention. These are not signs of spiritual connection, but symptoms of entrapment. Nature, in its silent mastery, ensures the continuation of the species through a force stronger than reasoned desire. It does not appeal to the intellect, overwhelms it. A man may be logical in every other aspect of life, but once this force grips him, he behaves not as a sovereign thinker, as a creature under command. The woman becomes the object through which nature achieves its singular goal: reproduction. And to ensure compliance, nature dresses this goal in the garments of passion, romance, and longing. This is why the desire for a woman is so often irrational. Men do not desire based on compatibility or shared values, but on appearance, allure, and impression, all cues rooted in fertility, youth, and signs of genetic health. The man thinks he is making a choice. In reality, the choice is being made through him. He is being moved like a pawn across nature's board, seduced not by the individual soul of the woman, but by the ancient algorithm of selection coded into his biology. The deception is complete when man begins to moralize the feeling. He calls it true love, soul connection, or divine timing. But what he truly loves is not her essence, but the way she triggers his internal mechanism. She becomes the vessel through which his instinct projects fantasy. He dreams of a future with her, not because it is rational, but because the desire itself demands justification. The longing seeks a story, and so he creates one. This is how he becomes complicit in his own manipulation. Women, too, are subjects of this system, but they play a different role. While man is driven to chase, she is designed to attract. She need not act aggressively. Her appearance, demeanor, and selective responses are enough to lure. Her value is established in how many seek her, while his is measured by how many he can win. This asymmetric equation creates a scenario in which men compete for women who merely exist. And in this competition, men inflate her worth to near divine proportions. Not because she is truly rare, because nature has placed her at the center of the instinctual mechanism. In his pursuit, man sacrifices. He works, achieves, displays, and performs, not always for himself, but to prove his worth to her. His ambitions are redirected. His courage, his money, his attention, all offered on the altar of desire. And yet, he believes it is he who chooses to give. He does not see that it is desire which demands it, and he simply obeys. Nature requires that he pursue, provide, and protect, and so it makes the pursuit feel noble, the protection feel heroic, the provision feel purposeful. The strings are pulled deep beneath the surface. Even the pain of unrequited love, which haunts men and drives them to madness, is part of nature's plan. The deeper the suffering, the stronger the imprint. The more elusive the reward, the more obsessed the man becomes. This ensures persistence even when reason advises retreat. The mechanism does not want logic, it wants results. It uses pleasure and pain interchangeably, not to nurture the man, but to secure the reproduction of the species. It has no concern for the individual soul who longs in vain, or the life destroyed by romantic obsession. The machine runs cold. The tragedy is that man, enslaved by this desire, believes he is experiencing the pinnacle of life. He believes that to win a woman's affection is the highest triumph. In reality, it is often the first step into self-forgetting. He begins to orbit her, to build his sense of self around her reactions. He does not see that the center of gravity has shifted. What was once his mind is now her reflection. What was once his ambition is now her validation. She becomes the axis on which his worth spins. This is why desire is so dangerous. Not because it is false, but because it is true in the service of a lie. The emotions are real, the longing is sincere, but the purpose is borrowed. It is not the man's purpose, but nature's. He is seduced not only by her, by the narrative he builds around her. He believes he is becoming whole, when in fact he is being divided. Intellect against instinct, freedom against compulsion, selfhood against submission. While man has historically dominated the realms of war, politics, and physical conquest, the woman has excelled in a more subtle and insidious form of influence, emotional manipulation. She does not need the sword, nor does she need the vote or the crown to rule. Her empire is built upon suggestion, implication, and silence. Her power is not asserted through force, through feeling. Feelings she evokes, amplifies, or withholds with precision and purpose. The mistake men make is to assume that because women lack physical power, they also lack control. But influence is not always loud. It is not always visible. The strongest chains are those you never notice being wrapped around you. A woman does not command a man to act. Instead, she nudges him. With a tear, a glance, a withdrawal of affection. The man moves, not because he was ordered, but because he feels compelled, and that is precisely what makes the manipulation so effective. He believes it was his choice. She knows that reason is a language men speak, but emotion is the current that truly drives them. She does not argue with logic. She does not overpower the man through direct confrontation. Instead, she appeals to guilt, to fear of abandonment, to the need for validation. She may frame herself as the victim, not because she is weak, because the role of the injured party grants her moral superiority. In the eyes of society, the one who cries is always innocent, the one who walks away is always cruel. And so, she wins not by dominance, but by public perception. From a young age, women are attuned to emotional cues. They observe more than they speak. They notice changes in tone, subtle expressions, hesitation. They study human behavior not as a science, as a survival skill. In a world where physical strength is not on their side, they develop the art of influence. Through charm, shame, affection, and vulnerability. These are not defects, they are tools. And she uses them without ever needing to call them what they are. Men, driven by their desire and idealism, often mistake this manipulation for innocence. They believe her when she says, "I didn't mean to," even when her actions suggest otherwise. They excuse the contradictions, the emotional extremes, the gaslighting, because the illusion of her fragility is stronger than the evidence of her calculation. He cannot see the game because he is playing it with his heart exposed. Consider how frequently men alter their behavior not because of reason, but to avoid emotional consequences. He avoids conflict not because he is wrong, but because he fears her silent treatment. He agrees not out of belief, but to restore harmony. He sacrifices not from strength, but to prevent her withdrawal. This is not equality. It is quiet domination. It is the bending of will without force. Even in moments of conflict, she often refrains from direct statements. She implies. She suggests. She hints at her pain rather than naming it. And the man, anxious to fix what he cannot understand, begins to overextend. He apologizes for things he didn't do. He adjusts behavior she never explicitly asked him to change. Her ambiguity becomes a canvas on which he projects his guilt and tries to buy back her affection with obedience. There is also the tactic of comparison. A woman may not need to insult a man directly. Instead, she speaks highly of another, a friend's boyfriend who is so understanding, or a colleague who really listens. These remarks are not casual, they are surgical. The man, without being scolded, feels inferior. He wants to be better. He starts to measure himself against shadows. She never demanded anything, yet he changes everything. This is emotional leverage at its finest. And what of intimacy? The use of affection and sex not as a shared act of closeness, as currency. Given, withheld, rationed, not always as conscious punishment or reward, but often intuitively as a way to maintain control. If the man displeases, affection cools. If he conforms, it returns. She never has to say the words. The rhythm of her warmth teaches him how to behave. What makes this manipulation so difficult to detect is that it operates under the pretense of emotion. She appears hurt, not calculating. She seems confused, not strategic, and so the man responds with sympathy, not suspicion. He protects rather than questions. He comforts rather than confronts. In doing so, he reinforces the very behavior that keeps him bound. Society, too, plays a role in fortifying this dynamic. The man who points out emotional manipulation is seen as weak or paranoid. He is told to be a man, to take responsibility. But the woman who cries is seen as honest, even heroic. Her emotions are validated, her actions rarely scrutinized. This asymmetry allows her tools to operate in plain sight, while the man must remain silent about the strings that move him. The tragedy is that by the time a man realizes he is being manipulated emotionally, the damage is often already done. He has given too much, lost too much, compromised too deeply. He no longer knows what he thinks or wants. He only knows what pleases her. His identity, once sovereign, now orbits her moods, her needs, her approval. The greatest chains a man wears are not forged in iron, but in illusion. They are not visible to the eye, yet they weigh heavier than any physical burden. These chains are composed of romantic myths, social expectations, and the desperate need to believe that happiness lies in the arms of another. As long as man clings to this illusion, that a woman, any woman, will redeem his loneliness, complete his identity, or crown his life with permanent bliss, he remains a slave, not to her, but to his own misunderstanding of life. The beginning of freedom is disenchantment. Not hatred, not bitterness, not withdrawal, but the painful and clear-eyed acceptance that what he once believed to be sacred was, in fact, only strategic. That her love was not unconditional, that her loyalty was not eternal, and that her interest was rarely without terms. The realization does not come as thunder or sudden revelation. It creeps in quietly, often after disappointment has become a pattern, after her affection has fluctuated based on advantage, after he has given and given only to be left emptier each time. Man, in his naivete, attributes this failure to himself. He thinks he was not kind enough, not successful enough, not understanding enough. But this self-blame is only the second phase of the illusion. The truth is far simpler, far colder. She does not love you for who you are. She responds to what you offer, emotionally, materially, socially. This does not make her evil, it makes her pragmatic. But when you mistake pragmatism for passion, you are always preparing to be betrayed. Disenchantment strips away the softness of your view and forces you to examine reality as it is. You begin to notice the patterns you once dismissed. You see how her affection aligns with her convenience, how her admiration rises when others admire you, how her patience increases when you provide, and how her warmth fades the moment your utility declines. You begin to see that what you called connection was often just alignment of self-interest, and that once those interests diverge, so does her presence. It is at this threshold that most men retreat. They run back to the dream, to the myth, to the comforting lie. They seek another woman, hoping she will be the exception. They continue the cycle, unwilling to accept that what they seek in others is something they must first strip from themselves. The need to be completed. But the man who stands at the edge of this realization and does not run is the one who begins to wake up. To be disenchanted is to see clearly without flinching. It is to no longer be moved by the same bait that once dictated your worth. Her smile no longer intoxicates, because you now know it is a tool. Her silence no longer destabilizes you, because you understand it as a tactic. Her praise does not inflate you, nor does her absence diminish you. You have reclaimed your center not by force but by detachment. This is not coldness, it is composure. Not indifference, but sovereignty. In disenchantment, you begin to observe without reacting. You see how often her love is conditional, how her respect is tied to your ability to project power or social validation. You see how she may claim emotional depth, yet retreats from accountability. How she demands sensitivity, but shows none when she holds the upper hand. These are not anomalies. These are structures of behavior, instinctual and ancient, dressed in modern language. They were always there. You simply refuse to see them. Freedom does not come through changing her. It comes through no longer needing her to be something she's not. The moment you stop expecting depth where there is strategy, permanence where there is opportunism, or loyalty where there is advantage, that is the moment you step beyond dependence. You no longer chase her affection, because you understand it as variable. You no longer fear her rejection, because you no longer place your identity in her acceptance. You no longer seek to impress her, because your value has returned to your own estimation of self. What the world calls cynicism is, in truth, clarity. They call you cold, detached, emotionally unavailable. But what they do not understand is that you have already blood. You have already sacrificed. You have already learned that, To build your life around the approval of a woman is to build it on shifting ground. The disenchanted man is not loveless. He is no longer enslaved by love's illusions. He may love, but without losing himself. He may give, not from a place of desperation. He may stay, but never because he fears being alone. The man who has been disenchanted is no longer seduced by appearances. He sees through flattery, through victimhood, through the carefully curated performances of innocence. He does not respond to manipulation because his need for validation has died. He may still enjoy a woman's presence, but her absence no longer haunts him. He may still listen, her disapproval no longer silences his voice. He has exited the stage where life is a script written by others. He writes his own part without needing applause. Disenchantment is the death of fantasy and the birth of power. It is not found in books or romantic sermons. It is forged in solitude, in quiet nights of reflection, in the bitter realization that what you once called love was sometimes dependence, confusion, or projection. The more illusions die, the more the man is born. Not the obedient man, not the pleasing man, but the free man, one who is no longer ruled by her moods, her judgments, her affection, or her absence. What you have just heard is not a sermon of hatred, nor a rejection of women. It is a confrontation with truth, uncomfortable, unpolished, and free of illusion. You were not born to be a servant of instinct, nor a worshiper of fantasy. The chains that bind you are made not by her, but by your refusal to see her as she is, rather than as you wish her to be. From the illusion of female idealism, to the trap of desire disguised as love, to the subtle, yet profound control exerted through emotional manipulation. Every part of this system functions because you believe in it. You give it power by assigning it meaning. You endure confusion and pain because you cling to myths that were never yours. But the moment you step out of that illusion, the moment you see clearly, without resentment, without need, without fear, you become untouchable. Not because you dominate, but because you are no longer dominated. Not because you hate, but because you are no longer dependent. The truth will never flatter you. It will not soothe you, but it will free you. And in that freedom, you will not lose love. You will find something far greater yourself.